Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're diving into something literally every single one of us deals with, and that's stress. But we aren't just going to sit here and define what stress is. We're exploring a highly practical, psychology-backed toolkit to actually handle those everyday pressures. Let's just dive right into the survival guide for staying centered, resilient, and healthy, no matter what life throws our way.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. Overcoming unhelpful habits. 2. Self-care. 3. Diet. 4. Exercise. And 5. Improving relationships. We are basically tackling stress from the inside out.
But before we get into optimizing our physical health or our social circles, let's be totally honest for a second. Are you guilty of saying, "I will do it later"? I know my laundry pile definitely suggests that I am. We all do it. But understanding exactly why we do this is the absolute first step in clearing our internal roadblocks. We simply can't build a strong physical and social foundation if our own minds are constantly working against us. Which brings us to our first pillar: overcoming unhelpful habits, or winning the internal battle. There is a massive paradox here. We often develop these habits thinking they're helping us survive the day, but they're actually traps. Unhelpful habits are just short-term coping strategies that actually make us way more vulnerable to stress in the long run. The things we do to just avoid immediate stress are practically guaranteeing much worse stress down the line. It's wild, right? It's actually fascinating to see how self-sabotage follows a perfectly logical pattern. It usually starts with perfectionism. That feeling of having to get everything just right. Well, what does that do? It makes you feel incredibly tense, overly critical, and makes you start avoiding challenges. Because the stakes feel impossibly high, that tension triggers avoidance, where you completely refuse to accept or face an issue. You just put the issue right under the carpet because it's just too stressful to look at. And that avoidance, that ultimately results in procrastination, putting off what needs to be done. We aren't just being lazy when we put things off. We are deliberately avoiding our deep-seated fears of failure or rejection. But hey, once we see this pattern, we can actually start to break it. Once we've started clearing out those mental roadblocks, we pivot to building up the physical self. Pillar 2, self-care, the physical foundation. And I want to be super clear here. Self-care has become a bit of a buzzword lately, hasn't it? It's usually associated with just taking a bubble bath or treating yourself. But psychologically speaking, it is a concrete, active life skill. Self-care is keeping ourselves healthy, fit, and relaxed to be better prepared physically and emotionally to tackle the stresses of everyday life. It's about creating a literal physical shield against those everyday demands. Moving right along to our third pillar, we have diet, feeding your resilience. Now, this isn't about weight loss. It's about feeding your resilience. What we put into our bodies directly dictates our capacity to handle psychological strain. A varied, balanced diet literally armors your body. It lifts your mood, gives you way more energy, feeds your muscles, improves your circulation, prevents illness, and absolutely strengthens your immune system. When you are biologically fortified like this, minor stressors just bounce right off of you. But here is the catch: a deeply ingrained biological trap. As the quote says, when we are stressed, we seek comfort foods, which are high in fat, salt, and sugar. The very second we feel stressed, our brains trick us into craving the exact foods that drag our physical resilience straight down. Recognizing this impulse is absolutely key to stopping the cycle. When you feel stressed, that is precisely the moment your body needs a nutritious meal the most. And that builds directly into our next physical pillar: exercise, the ultimate stress buffer. Research actually shows that exercise is the lifestyle change with the widest popular approval for managing stress. And we basically have two totally different ways to use exercise to manage our physical state. You've got stretching exercises like yogasanas, which have a profound calming effect on the body. Then, on the flip side, you have aerobic exercises like jogging, swimming, or cycling, which actively increase the arousal level of the body, allowing you to physically burn off all that pent-up stress and anxiety. You can literally choose your exercise based on whether your body needs to be soothed or if it desperately needs an active outlet for tension. Okay, we've cleared our minds, we've optimized our bodies with self-care, diet, and exercise. Now we transition to the final stage of our inside-out journey: improving relationships in the external world. Psychological studies repeatedly show that social support is a massive protector against stress. Having people you trust and who value you significantly reduces psychological distress. But the absolute key to a sound, lasting relationship is communication. It doesn't just happen by accident, right? It requires active, intentional effort. So what does that actually look like? It comes down to 3 essential skills. First, genuinely listening to what the other person is saying, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Second, clearly expressing how you feel and what you think. And third, accepting the other person's opinions and feelings even if they are completely different from your own. And look, we're all human. We also have to consciously avoid behaviors like misplaced jealousy and sulking to keep these connections strong. A healthy social network is basically an immunization against life's traumas, but you've got to tend to it.
So we've covered the entire roadmap: mind, body, and social connections. I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Which of these 5 pillars are you going to implement today to immunize yourself against stress? Are you going to tackle procrastination, maybe plan a balanced meal, go for a run, or practice some active listening with a friend? The toolkit is right there. Pick just one and start building your resilience today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.